What are Minnesota's candidates for governor in the 2010 election saying about tuition? Hi, I'm Caitlin Steen, representing the Minnesota State Students Association. Minnesota State College and University's Board of Trustees Chair Scott Thiss and I recently interviewed the candidates about important issues in higher education today. Hear what they had to say about tuition. As you know, tuition has been rising all across the country, and student debt loan has increased significantly over the past decade. In fact, the Chronicle of Higher Education last month reported that our Minnesota public two-year universities has the third largest highest tuition of public systems across the country. What are your views on affordability, especially as related to the balance between personal and public support for higher education?
Well, it is a tough issue, and I just need to be very honest with people that when you look out over the next 2 years, the first 2 years of the next governor's term, there's a $6 billion shortfall, about 20% of the state's operating budget. Now, I do believe that we need to have tax reform, and part of my tax reform proposal would create some new revenue, do it ways that are fair, that advance the economy, but there's only so much in an economy that still is struggling to regain its footing that you can turn to taxes. So we are going to have to do some spending cuts, and there are areas where we need to make investments. I think it's going to be very, very difficult to add a lot of new money to higher education in the next 2 years. My commitment is let's make sure that we don't make the problem worse. So let's, at a minimum, look at the projected funding and make sure that we're delivering funding at least at the level that we ought to, including student growth and including inflation. And secondly, if we're able to find new money, I believe that money ought to go first into the two-year schools, because there is the opportunity not just to reduce the tuition at our very, very important vocational and technical schools and our community colleges, but also to make sure that people understand that these schools in so many ways are the economic engines. They're tied to the local regional economic assets. They're creating job training for the future for both traditional students as well as lifelong learners. But also, I think there's a great opportunity as we elevate the stature of our two-year schools that they can be more of the bridge to the four-year schools, where students can get a feel for what college is all about. What does it take to succeed in college, to make that transition from high school, to give some thought about where their future is. And I think one of the things the MnSCU schools have done very, very well is to make sure that the students who are going to the community colleges, getting their generals done there, then can transfer seamlessly into the four-year schools. That's a huge asset as we think about the higher cost of post-secondary education.
Well, I think, again, I told you at the beginning, I'm a father of 7, and I've sat down and done the math. I will tell you, our MnSCU system is probably the highest value for your dollar in terms of the core training, but our university system is fabulous as well. The issue really is about affordability. We were talking a little bit before we got started today that while the price of operating these institutions stays at about inflation, the cost of tuition has simply been running far in excess of tuition. It's really, it's a matter of getting control of those costs. You know, the market has to play some role, and you can't just say government throwing more money at it is going to keep tuition down if the system itself is not going to have those price controls in place for tuition. You're not going to control it just by putting more money into it. So it's going to be a partnership between not only our state government, the next governor, and the leaders of our MnSCU system and our University of Minnesota, our wonderful University of Minnesota, but it's going to be getting those institutions to put even greater emphasis on controlling the actual cost of education for our students at a time, by the way, when higher education is even more important to our future, and it's simply becoming unaffordable.
Minnesota ranked a decade ago 12th highest among the states in the nation in our commitment to higher education. Now we've dropped down to 36th. It's been a 28% reduction in funding per full-time student. And as a result, tuitions have gone up, and even then there have been all these terrible layoffs and cutbacks in course offerings. So this can't continue. I mean, one of the cornerstones of our success as a state has been affordable, accessible higher education. And those of you who are successful in completing your 2 or 4 year degrees, even if it takes longer to do so, we know are going to be more successful than your counterparts in society. You're going to earn more. You're going to contribute more to our society. So it's in everyone's benefit, starting with yours and your fellow students, that we make college affordable and further education beyond that. And tell you that your education is important, which it is, that you should get as much of it as possible, which you should, because it'll benefit you and our society. We're not going to help you pay for it. We're going to make it unaffordable for you or your parents to send you to college, university, and you're going to have to go tens of thousands of dollars in debt just before you get out. One young man at Southwest State told me that he's going to be, $25,000, $30,000 in debt before he finishes his 4-year degree. Another young woman down in Marshall said she graduated with about that. She went up to the University of Minnesota to get her master's. She's back down there looking for a job. She's $100,000 in debt. This is terribly wrong.
Thank you for viewing and being interested in learning more about our candidates for governor. You can learn more about their views on the budget, online education, jobs, technical education, and changes in higher education at the website noted below. Here, you can view all 3 candidates' interviews in their entirety. And remember to vote on November 2nd.